from Chapter 2, Environment and Behaviorists, Enlightenment, Environmentalism. The diametrically opposite position of the instinctivists would seem to be held by environmentalists. According to their thinking, man's behavior is exclusively molded by the influences of the environment, i.e., by social and cultural as opposed to innate factors. This is particularly true with regard to aggression, one of the main obstacles to human progress. In the most radical form, this view was already presented by the philosophers of the Enlightenment. Man was supposed to be born, quote, good and rational, and it was due to be institutions, bad education, bad example, that he developed evil strivings. Some denied that there were any physical differences between the sexes, l'âme n'est pas de sexe, and proposed that whatever differences existed, aside from the anatomical ones, were exclusively due to education and social arrangements, in contrast to behaviorism. However, these philosophers were not concerned with methods of human engineering and manipulation, but with social and political change. They believed that the good society would create the good man, or rather that allow the natural goodness of man to manifest itself. Behaviorism. Behaviorism was founded by J.B. Watson, 1914. It was based on the premise that, quote, the subject matter of human psychology is the behavior or activities of the human being, unquote. Like logical positivism, it ruled out all subjective, quote unquote, subjective concepts which could not be directly observed, such as, quote, sensation, perception, image, desire, even thinking and emotion as they are subjectively defined, unquote. J.B. Watson, 1958. Behaviorism underwent a remarkable development from the less sophisticated formulations of Watson to the brilliant neo-behaviorism of Skinner, but this mainly represents a refinement of the original thesis rather than a greater depth of originality. B. F. Skinner's neo-behaviorism. Skinnerian neo-behaviorism. Note: Skinner, in contrast to many behaviorists, even concedes that private events, quote, need not be entirely ruled out of scientific consideration, and adds that a behavioral theory of knowledge suggests that the private world, which is not entirely unknowable, is at least not likely to be known well, unquote. B. F. Skinner, 1961. Alright. Now, so it says, let me see, so it disdains any attempt to speak of a nature of man, or construct a model of man, or to analyze various human passions which motivate human behavior, to consider humans' behavior as impelled by the intentions, purposes, aims, or goals would be a pre-scientific and useless way of looking at it. Psychology has to study what reinforcements tend to shape human behavior and how to apply the reinforcements most effectively. Skinner's, quote, psychology, unquote, is the science of the engineering of behavior. Its aim is to find the right reinforcements in order to produce a desired behavior. Yeah. Environmentalists and behaviorists. Instead of the simple conditioning in the Pavlovian model, Skinner speaks of operant conditioning. Briefly, this means that unconditioned behavior, provided it is desirable from the experimenter's standpoint, is rewarding, as in followed by pleasure. Skinner believes the rewarding reinforcements to be much more effective than punishing. As a result, the subject will eventually continue to behave in the desired fashion. For example, Johnny does not like spinach particularly. He eats it. Mother rewards him with praising remark, an affectionate glance, or an extra piece of cake. Whether is most reinforcing for Johnny as measured by what works best, as in she administers positive reinforcement. Johnny will eventually love to eat spinach, particularly if the reinforcements are effectively administered in terms of their reinforcements. Are effectively administered in terms of their schedules. In hundreds of experiments, Skinner and others have developed the techniques for this operant conditioning. Skinner has shown that by the proper use of the positive reinforcement, the behavior of animals and humans can be altered in an amazing degree, even in the opposition to what some would loosely call, quote, innate tendencies, unquote. To have shown this is undoubtedly the great merit of Skinner's experimental work. It also supports the view that of those who believe that the social structure, or, quote, culture, unquote, in the parlance of most American anthropologists can shape man, even though not necessarily through operant conditioning. It is important to add that Skinner does not neglect genetic endowment. In order to render his position correctly, one should say that apart from genetic endowment, behavior is determined entirely by reinforcement. Reinforcement can occur in two ways. It happens in the normal cultural process, or it can be planned according to Skinnerian teaching and thus lead to a design for culture. B.F. Skinner, 1961-1971.